Hello, and here we are. I'm Kirsty Salisbury, host of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. We are back live with you today. Excited to be here. It's been a bit of a crazy day. I'll fill you on the story that happened. So today our guest is Rex Finfgeld, and I just sent an email to Rex saying, "Great, can't wait to see you really soon. Looking forward to our call." I pushed send on that email. It flew off to Rex, and then I don't know if you know, but recently, based down here in New Zealand, we've been having some earthquakes this week, not in New Zealand, but just off the coast. I live in a little beach town and we've been on alert for tsunami evacuation for some time for this week. Anyway, the tsunami siren goes off and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we've got 20 minutes until we really need to get into this. And I'm thinking, what do I do? So I jumped in my car, we got the dog, my husband was running around, we're throwing food in bags, we're getting our evacuation gear. Go up to the checkout point where we're supposed to go to. Nothing happening. Turns out that the painters were down at the fire station and they accidentally flicked the switch. There was a technical fault. They couldn't turn the siren off, which meant it turned from a fire siren into the tsunami warning siren. It's been all go. I'm just babbling while people are coming into our call. But it is fabulous to have you all here live on YouTube, the Kirsty Salisbury YouTube channel, live on the Let's Talk Near Death podcast Facebook page. If you want to get updates from me, if you want to get weekly updates, hear about all the events that are coming up, and we have got some really good ones coming up, do let me know your email address. I can add you to that list. There's so much going on within the podcast. It is fabulous. It is very busy, and I am having the time of my life. However, you haven't tuned in to hear about me. Today's guest, Rex Finfgeld, he had a near-death experience in 2011. And you may have gone back and heard the episode that we did together. Gosh, that was a while ago, wasn't it, Rex? Probably about a year ago?
I think so, at least a year ago. Did we do it in 2020? Maybe early 2020, maybe. I think so. I think we've done two, haven't we? Or was it just one?
No, this will be our second one. This is our live one, but we've done anyway. Rex and I have chatted back and forth quite a bit, and I know you're going to love it.
My memory's not so good.
That's right. So you've got two of us here with little brain injuries, but that's okay. We're going to have a great conversation.
Yes,
we'll enjoy it if nothing else, Rex.
We always do.
Yeah. So Rex had his near-death experience in 2011. He fell, was it 26 foot that you fell?
So close to 9 meters. He had 26 feet, almost 9 meters.
Onto concrete.
It's in my record. What's that?
No, that's okay. 5 days in a coma, a month in hospital. You had, I'm just reading it here, 3 brain bleeds, 20 broken bones, punctured lung, internal bleeding, and a near-death experience. And so Rex is also the author of his book. Gosh, my thing's fallen down here. My Experiment with Gravity. Now, I really love this. I love the concept of talking about gravity within near-death experiences, within consciousness, within all of the juicy topics that we're going to get into today.
Yes.
And you said in your near-death experience that you experienced your own pure being. For a moment, you were the all of everything. You were pure love, life, and the mind and imagination that gives rise to all of creation. This is so exciting. Rex, welcome to this live, which I'm literally just babbling. Like I said, I've just walked in the door after thinking I was getting evacuated.
I'm just glad you're okay. That's scary. I read here it was an 8.1 magnitude earthquake. That is nothing to mess with. That's scary. I mean, that levels cities. You know, if that earthquake happens on land, that's leveling cities. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was actually no big deal. It was off the coast. We got woken up. There was a few. Well, I slept through it because I'm a really good sleeper. My family got woken up.
Well, I'm just glad there's no tsunami because those can also be devastating. We've seen images of those. So I'm just glad everybody's okay. That's the biggest thing.
Oh, yeah, we're all fine here. It was actually not a very big deal. It sounded like it was, but it wasn't that big until I had to get in my car half an hour ago. Anyway, Rex, take us back. Tell us your near-death experience. Do you want to just give us a little overcap on that just for the people who maybe haven't been able to listen to your experience?
You mean as far as the fall itself, the physical, as far as the what?
Yeah, if you can sum up the fall, what happened, how it's changed you, and then we're going to launch into some of the questions. And if you're listening and you have questions, please just jump in with the comments. If you're loving this, give Rex a thumbs up, give him a like, give him a comment. The more interactive we can be, the better this call will be. So don't hold back. And Rex, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just here to share ideas and share my thoughts and story. The idea here is get everybody's thinking about it, so you can start, formulating ideas and thoughts, within your own mind. This is ideas. Maybe you'll say something to me that sparks something in me that I didn't think about before, and maybe I could say something here that sparks something inside of you that maybe you've been trying to search for or maybe sort out. But basically, yes, I'm a martial artist. Just to kind of give you a little backstory, and I've been a martial artist pretty much my whole life. I've got a background in fighting. I've been in the ring. I fought on the streets. I've done nightclub and event security, as well as having been a nightclub and concert promoter, longtime DJ. So a lot of stuff along those lines. But anyways, climbing was one of my hobbies as a martial artist, and I'm an instructor as well. So as a martial artist, one of my forms of cross training was climbing. I live in the state of Colorado here in the U.S. If you're in the U.S., you know exactly about Colorado. It's known as the Rocky Mountain State. Of course, the Rocky Mountains are all over the western U.S., but still it's kind of known as the Rocky Mountain State. So climbing is a hobby. I love rock climbing. I love going up the side of a mountain. I've always done free climbing, but I also love climbing trees, and I've loved that ever since I was a kid. I never outgrew climbing trees. Mm-hmm. And I'm about 6'4", and I've always been more on the slender side. It's back when I used to fight. I liked being the slender guy. So climbing was a great way to get very strong without getting big. It's like yoga. I did yoga as well. In fact, I still do yoga. It's good for my very, very broken up body. Anyway, so I was in a tree I've climbed like 100 times. This is it was a cottonwood tree. And cottonwoods, here in Colorado are one of the bigger trees. Because we're higher altitude here in Denver, we're the Mile High City. The trees don't usually grow as big, but cottonwood's a good size. So I'm up in one of my favorite trees. And like I said, I've climbed this tree dozens of times. It was a training day. I was working out. It was in a great space. I was happy. I was having fun. And when I climbed, I always went slow. I took my time. I was never a speed climber. Because I didn't use gear and because I am a hobbyist, not a professional, I always went real slow because I was very cognizant of the possibility of falling. Needless to say, this particular spring in 2011, here in Colorado, we were having a very dry spring. Typically, spring in Denver is usually pretty wet. We usually get most of our snowfall in Denver in the spring, believe it or not, although not probably so much this year. But anyway, that year it was a dry one, and I didn't know this, but apparently cottonwoods get brittle when they get dry, when the season is dry. When I was climbing, I literally had 2 branches let go underneath me. These were live, thick branches. One branch let go. I reached out to grab a second branch, and it broke, and it spun me around, and I went down onto a concrete bike path. Says it in my records as well. Patient hit head first. So I hit a concrete bike path head first from almost 9 meters. And yes, so as you've indicated, I was in a coma for 5 days, massive bleeding on the brain. I crashed many times while in the coma. I have doctors, and as well as family members, calling me a walking miracle that I should have even survived, considering that I had one doctor explain to me, he was my orthopedic surgeon, who was working on something completely different when I crashed, tell me at one of our appointments, he goes, "Man, I can't believe you came through this. We really thought we lost you. We really thought it was over, and somehow you came back." So that was the battle. And so, yeah, I broke 20 bones, month in the hospital, the whole thing. But the NDE itself, something happened while I was under, if you will. And understand something just real quick. My book title, My Experiment with Gravity, is kind of a reflection of this big series of synchronicities that has taken place since my NDE. When I first named the book, it really wasn't about ideas about gravity. I hadn't had these epiphanies yet. Believe me, I had tons of, we're going to get into it, but I had all kinds of awakenings and epiphanies and ideas. My mind woke up to so many things from this, but I hadn't quite ventured into what my ideas on space-time gravity and its relationship to the unified field and the multiverse and source consciousness. That hadn't quite emerged yet. So the title of the book is more of a running joke, because even though I went through all this medical stuff, I always made a joke about it. Come on, I'm a grown man who fell out of a tree, okay? I get the humor in that. In fact, most of my presentations, especially my early presentations, they hear, "Oh, he's a near-death experiencer," and all this stuff. And the first question is, what the heck was a grown man doing in a tree? So,
I love it. Yeah.
But needless to say, though, it was a long-running joke that I always, instead of referring to it as a fall, that I fell, it seemed anticlimactic. And I always joked that, "Hey, my experiment with gravity. Do you remember my experiment with gravity? Ha, ha, ha." So people even to this day, they'll sometimes, "Hey, Rex, how you doing since your experiment with gravity?" So that is the reason for the title of the book. I mean, and as I was finishing the books, you'll notice for anyone who's read it, in the introduction, I have a little tiny blurb about what at that time was my initial epiphany about gravity. I just had the very first one. But believe it or not, the title of the book is not actually a reference to that. However, as I get into books 2 and 3, that's going to reemerge more, especially in book 3. Most of that information is book 3 information. And as the goal of that, and people sometimes are like, well, you had this near-death experience. What are you wasting your time on something like gravity for? Which I think is a really funny question, because I think even in just a purely scientific sense, I think it's really mind-blowing stuff. But the thing is, and I don't know, I guess I don't call it a reveal of sorts or I don't know, trying to give anything away, but the book really is about is describing my vision of what God, goddess might really be. It's a step in the direction of understanding or envisioning, comprehending, even in our little tiny human form, what this vast source consciousness might really actually be. When we say God, goddess, God, goddess, God, goddess, however you want to, because I get my own kind of a personal take, maybe I'm jumping around a bit, is kind of like, I see goddess first. Now, it's all one. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I feel like the divine source is really male and female, but at the same time, neither, because this is the source being. It just is. It just is this very unique point of our existence and being, that which is our truest being, our truest self. But it's that mother energy, it's that birther giver energy that really resonates, especially in these most recent years. Even being a man, I've been very much resonating on divine feminine goddess energy a lot. And I'm not really subscribing to any singular philosophy or religion or anything like that. But there's something very Wiccan in this for me. And I'm not neither Wiccan or say, I'll refer to like Sweat Lodge and Native American philosophy a lot, sometimes even Christian philosophy from time to time, and others. So I just want to be clear on that. I'm very much connected with all of these different ideas. But anyways, it's kind of getting back to this, the NDE. I mean, that's essentially the initial epiphany, that a moment while I was in the coma, somewhere in there, because to me, I remember it as just a moment. Now, in that moment, understand, when you're in this space of spirit reality, if you will, space-time's not the same thing as it is here. So I could have literally been experiencing this for the entire time I was in the coma. If somebody wants to try to quantize this somehow with time in this physical experience, maybe I was there the entire time. But maybe it was only one particular moment. Maybe it was just one of those crashes I just broke through somehow. I don't know. My recollection, if you will, it seems like just a moment. But in that moment was the experience of the all of everything. I literally experienced everything from the lightest, most pure light to the darkest, most darkest dark, and everything in between, the expanse of the entire universe to past, present, to future, the idea of multiple realities and parallel universes in terms of the pure probability and possibility of how realities can play out, how timelines can play out, and even right up into a universal possibility so foreign and abstract to us we can't even begin to comprehend it, let alone exist in it. Right up into infinite dimensions. And for a moment, that was the space I was in. But in that space, understand, for all of that, it was also really, really simple, because it was just love. I wasn't experiencing love. I was love. I was love. I was the being. I was source. I was love. And in that space, I didn't feel like I was alive. We're alive here. I was life. I was spirit itself. It was just that pure, innocent essence. And in that was that mind, that imagination that gives rise to this creation and this infinity of experiences we're all going through. As this divine being discovers itself through all of us and our experiences and this entire universal experience itself, the way we experience this divine being, because at the source, at the core, it's really all one and the same. It's a singular source being that was alone. And I'm still oversimplifying this, but essentially it was alone within itself and gave into the temptation of wanting to know, who am I? What am I? What am I doing here? And the only way it could know and understand is through experience. Only in the case of this being, it's having an experience upon which, the likes of which, we could maybe barely even begin to comprehend. But one thing I discovered too out of all of this, think about this. If we are truly created in the image of God, goddess, I think it's in that, even with our own thoughts, with our own being, Think about the physical body, how much life has to go into making you, you. All of the living cells having unique individual experiences within your body. Okay, skin cells, blood cells, bone cells, brain cells, all of it. And it goes on, all the organic parts of your being and body that make this work. Now, it doesn't even get into all the stuff that makes us work from within. I mean, sorry, I'm kind of like my brain's going off in a few different places here.
No, it's good. And I totally hear you. And yeah, I'm actually just thinking, like
I do. And this is my near-death experience. And this is what came out of the NDE itself. And this is what, even 10 years later, you can see me going off about this. I'm still processing this. That's how big and profound and heavy this incredible thing is. But at the same time, it's also light and beautiful. In our last, I'm pretty sure I said this in our last interview, I call this a blurse. It's both a blessing and a curse.
I do remember this. I love that. A blurse. Yes. And it totally is, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, on the one hand, I wouldn't have it any other way, but I'm going to tell you, it hasn't made my life any easier. I don't want to say better or worse, but I'll tell you right now, the challenges are 1,000 times more challenging because my sensitivities, my acuteness to everything, and just because of what I just described. It's not like I'm here now and I've left that behind. That's a part of me. I look at every part of my life that way. I see possibilities. I see ways through everything, not just in my own life, but in other people's lives. And recognizing how many times we all, myself included, when presented with that proverbial fork in the road, just for the sake of analogy, I'm going to keep this simple, where we can go down the path we already know that's already been painful, hurtful, tragic, or we have a moment, an opportunity to shift that into something different, perhaps shift that into something more along the lines of what one really hopes to manifest and dreams about in life. But yet, it seems so many times when that opportunity presents itself, we just automatically go for that same familiar path every time. And just say every time, almost every time. And it's taken me all this time in a near-death experience. I'm not trying to judge at all. I'm not saying it like that because I have an entire life of examples of regrets for this very reason. I was boxed into my own perception of reality, boxed into my perception of myself, even right down to what I thought I deserved and didn't deserve. And it played out in the manifestation of my life big time. And I'll tell you, shifting this stuff and moving down in a new path and recognizing this, there's definitely a process. We're living in a very, very thick, slow, molasses-like, energetic reality. It's just sometimes things can shift, boom, on the fly, but other times it's really a process to get things to move, especially when you have the fact that we're not in this alone. We're in this with each other. So it's not like there aren't other parts that have to move too. And if those parts aren't all moving together, then that manifestation may become difficult, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it just opens up so many points of conversation, doesn't it, Rex? It's so complex. And I think we potentially make it even more complex than it needs to be.
We make it so much harder on ourselves. We do.
Totally.
I got a life thing you said. Believe me, I can talk about that all day because I've lived it, and so I have a right to do it. So if I say it, I'm not trying to pick on myself or anybody else because I know people are struggling out there, and this stuff's real. So I'm not trying to make anyone feel like this is just my way of just trying to say, hey, listen, please explore the possibilities, and even if you're really, really scared to take a big, big leap, if you really want to change that life, you really want to shift. That's probably where it's going to be at. And I'm going to tell you from my own experience, life isn't always too kind to somebody who misses out on an opportunity when life says, hey, here you go. If you walk on past it, you don't see it, you don't do it. What happens from there, that's on you. You got to take responsibility for that because you made that choice. And sometimes, again, it's that leap. And it's the hardest thing. And in 2021, with the world the way it is, nobody wants to take leaps. Everybody's so caught up in survival, fight or flight mode right now, and I get it. I kind of get that way too, But to remind ourselves, we're in this together, folks. We are together. And if we're going to get through this, we're going to do it together.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to take it back a little bit. If you're listening and you've got questions, Alan just said, well said. He loves the title of your book, Lorianne. Just listen to our previous interview. Wow, what a crazy experience. If you've got questions for Rex, jump into the comments. You can put them there. This is your chance. That's why we're doing these live calls, so that you can get the answers to your questions, or you can have some discussion. There are so many topics we could go into. So if you've got questions, please just put them into the
Or just
comments.
discuss.
If you're enjoying it,
say maybe you give me an answer to something.
I've got it. Yeah, exactly. I've got a question for you. You touched on recently within your experience how you became everything. You were love, you experienced love, you were everything all at once. And I get that from the little glimpses. I call mine flashbacks. I have flashbacks from my NDE where it all comes to me and then it's gone.
Right.
And I'm like, whoa, what the heck was that? And then it's like you see it on TV when people remember things.
Yeah.
It's like that. You talked about being everything. You talked about being love. And then you talked about you said, well, who am I? Who am I really?
Yeah.
Where have you got to with that? Who are we? You said we're all connected. We are one. Who are we? Why are we here?
See, the thing about questions like that, and I'm going to answer it, but
Yeah.
as you know, we can go on for hours and discuss topics, but the answer to this question is really, really simple. We're love. At the core, the source, yes. We are love. We are pure being. And we are the essence of that, which is everything love, because nothing could be or exist without love, because that's what love is, essentially the source of even say my ideas on gravity, because it pulls everything together, allows everything to be at its best, at its highest point of fruition. And this could be taken, and again, that's something we could dive into that, and that could be a conversation unto itself. And so what that really means on a very esoteric kind of a level, right on into the level of our day-to-day lives, what that could really mean. But no, we are in love with the source. We really are, which is why even in our lives, and even when you look into nature and animals, even with the so-called less intelligent creatures, there's still a propensity for a certain happiness, a certain contentment. You see many, many animals, especially animals maybe we can say relate to a little bit, whether it's seals to dogs to even lions out in the middle of Africa that are playing and having fun, or even the big lazy male lion in the middle of a hot sunny day just lounging it out with their paws up in there like cats do. You know what I mean? I mean, our natural inclination is this happiness, is this contentment. And it seems nature, even the universe, seems to move its way towards that in one form or another. We can get into the science of it in terms of talking about the laws of thermodynamics. But the more esoteric aspect of it is that we really are love. And even in the darkest corners of our very existence, love is still there. Love is infused in everything. And I am, especially since this NDE, I'm of the belief that which is born of light, which is everything, goes home to light, which is everything. Of course, some paths back home to light are far more difficult and more challenging and much more long stretched out than others. But nonetheless, I mean, it's all light, which means love is infused in everything, even in the darkest corners, even where it just seems impossible to see. And I get this again. That's another big, long conversation right there. Is all the dynamics that come behind that, because we can think of all kinds of figures in history. It's like, I don't see any love there at all. But again, give me a chance to discuss some of that, and I think that I can at least offer perspective where no, there's something there, and even in the darkest corners, there's nothing arbitrary about that. Sometimes people comment about somebody who's got, especially when no more of a neurological perspective. No, this person's predisposed to being a sociopath or a psychopath. This person's just predisposed to these particular kinds of tendencies, and they just can't help it. Okay, to an extent, I can understand that. I have certain predispositions of my own, but I also understand that there are many different ways upon which people can express and experience love. And I also understand that these people who go into these spaces, especially when they end up acting on them in this life, there's nothing ever that's arbitrary about it. I don't care if you hear the story about the person as, like a Jeffrey Dahmer or something. No, he was a nice guy. He had a perfectly normal upbringing. There's no reason for him to turn out the way he did. I'm sorry to tell you, yes, there is. Something we don't know about in there. A series of something. It probably wasn't any one thing, but there was a pattern that emerged probably very early in his life that added to what was already a predisposition, the tendency perhaps towards a path that he ended up going down. But I'm telling you, if we, and I don't have the time or the energy, and I don't think any of us does, but if we did, just knowing, I would find that point was like, oh, there it is. There is a spot where he fell down. Where's the spot where that path began right there as a little boy. And I'm not making any excuses for it. It doesn't make it right. He got his, I mean, I don't want to say what people deserve or don't deserve, but I mean, obviously we know what happened to him in jail. My point is this: nothing's arbitrary. And if nothing else, don't put yourself in the line of fire of obviously such a being or such a person. But at the same time, understanding is a giant step towards offering a chance for even such a horribly dark being to begin to shift in some fashion. Because something I feel like it's happening, and I don't know about just here on Earth alone, but in terms of I feeling like this concept of karma, dark and light, there are certain aspects of the darkest darks, and I've seen it in certain individuals that I hear some of their stories from around the world, not necessarily NDEers, mind you, but just people that have maybe been through combat, war. They've killed people in their lives, worse than some things that I've done, and yet they've come back in that life. They've been in their darkest corners, and they've come back to do something positive in their community, in their life, and give something back despite where they've been. And I'm noticing, and maybe these cracks have been going along through history. It's harder to say because we don't have the same access we have now to information. But it seems like in some of these cracks, even inside of me, because I know I've got a dark soul path, the light's coming through. It's breaking through. It's kind of like the water in the Grand Canyon. It's I think it's Lao Tzu that makes the comment about an example of water being able to forge canyons. An example of softness overcoming hardness, and it's kind of what's going on with light. Eventually, that softness overcomes that hardness, and that light and that love it comes through and it prevails. Yeah, and I can just say this because I know the kind of being I've been even in this life, and you can't see what I've seen. You can't experience what I've experienced. You can't. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you've been and what you've done. You can't have this kind of experience and not truly be touched at the core and go, you know what? I have a choice to walk a lot of different directions right now. All of my feelings, even my darkest parts of my being, are more up front and center to me now than they've ever been. I know if I wanted to go get angry right now, it'd probably be a crazier and a more violent anger than it ever was in the past. And that's saying something. But at the same time, I also know that whatever I choose, which of course I'm choosing this path of light, I'm choosing this path of expanding into the consciousness, expanding into this experience, because that is what's growing and evolving the natural course home. And I recognize now I'm, in a manner of speaking, if I may, being called home, which means tells me any being from any part of this existence, it can potentially go home. And it just reminds me that we really are all eventually going to be there. So in that event, I want to at least put the information out there that it's possible, and even put the ideas out there for people that maybe just for the food for thought to help you find your way, whatever that means, because your journey is going to be different from my journey. I'm sure your experience as your past is different from my past. But maybe you've had something similar to me. Maybe I'm saying something here that you can relate to, because a lot of times, I got long hair. I dress in black most of the time. I've got tattoos. I am not your prototypical spiritual guy going up and talking about this stuff. And sometimes I get treated as such. And I like to tell this story sometimes too, because you just never know where this information, where this love, these connections are going to come from. And one of my favorite post-NDE stories is, as you know, Kiersey, I'm in a band. I've got musical projects. One of my post-NDE discoveries is making music. I've been a DJ my whole life, but I never wrote, composed, and produced music before. So that's a huge part of my life now. What's that?
Were you musical beforehand? Did you have any talents or skills? Or it wasn't a part of your life?
My skill beforehand was making people dance. I've been a DJ, nightclub, an event DJ since I was 16, but I've never imagined. And also, I was in the music business. I was a concert promoter. I was a nightclub event promoter. I also booked and managed bands. And I never, ever, during that whole time, I sat in the studio with so many bands, recording sessions. I never picked up the instrument. I never tried to sing. I never, even with my DJing, tried to do anything with a band. And it's out of a crazy series of synchronicities. I didn't plan this. I didn't know this. Starting with my band, Quantum Beings of the Miraculous, which I literally showed up one day and went, oh, wait, I think I'm in a band right now. I don't know how this happened, but I'm in this band right now. Then next thing I know, I pick up some drums and I start drumming, and I'm a percussionist. I djembes and congas and jambukas and all kinds of drums. I'll just throw it down on some percussion. And then about 2 years ago, I picked up the digital audio workspace software called Ableton. Took a couple just beginner intro classes just to figure out how to just use the software, and thinking maybe in a couple of years' time, I can learn some music theory, learn some production, and actually write a piece of music. Well, in about 6 weeks of when I started on Ableton, and it's totally unexpected. I didn't plan this. It was of course, we have a holiday here in America. It's Thanksgiving weekend here in America, which is the end of November. And And I had the whole weekend free, and I was trying to figure this DAW out, and I'm not good with technology. I get very frustrated very easy when dealing with technology. So this is a very, very deep and complex piece of technology here I'm dealing with. So anyways, by the end of the weekend, I not even meaning to, I had no idea I was even doing this, because I'd hear a track, something in my head, and I'd find it on Ableton and kind of just make a track, right? And just sort of just lay it out there, just play with it. I didn't know what I was doing and make it sound kind of halfway decent. Then I got an idea. You know what? If I put a little beat right here, this might be kind of cool. So I did that. So then I'm like, you know what? I can hear a kind of like a little simple sort of a piano thing right here. Maybe I should try that. Let's see what that sounds like. I put it in there. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And anyway, by the end of the weekend, I have an entire piece of music. Okay.
Wow.
I still have this piece of music. It's still one of my favorite pieces of music. People hear it and can't believe this was the first thing I ever made. And by the end of the weekend, I'm like, wait a second. I played this thing back and I'm like, I just wrote a whole piece of music. And I'm going, I'm just doing the whole Macaulay Culkin and Home Alone. Oh, did I just write a piece of music? I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And then I became obsessed with production because now I wanted to sound good. And I don't know why. I'm a very stubborn person, and I do have a thing about me. If I get really determined about something, no matter how hard it is, I have a way of figuring it out. So I have been. A little bit over 2 years. So 2.5 years later, I'm a full-blown producer. I've got 42 pieces of music, some of which are full-blown electronic symphonic pieces of music. My friends, I've got friends of mine, because I've been in the music business for so long. I've got lots of producer, engineer, musician friends, band friends that I'm sending this music to, and they're all going, Rex, where is this coming from? I've got a couple pieces, one called Black Rose, another one's called Healing Hearts, and one I just recently made called From My Dark to Your Light, which are like these very symphonic soundscapes, and they're musically very complex. I don't know what key anything is in. I have no idea. I don't know.
So this is coming from another source.
I'm envisioning it. I just get there, and all of a sudden it just comes to me. And sometimes I have a complete idea of where I'm going to go with it, and I create what's in my mind. Other times I sit down and I have no idea, and just something just comes out. And I'm telling you, I could literally just do something new every single day and never run out of ideas. I have so much music in my head now. It's crazy. I'd never imagined. And it wasn't there before like this. I've always loved music. I've been a DJ. I've even been on the radio. But I never imagined seeing music and envisioning and feeling music like this. And now there's a new way for me to reach out and connect with people, because people are being touched and moved by some of these pieces of music. Some of my friends are like, Rex, this piece is beautiful. It's now in my playlist. And I'm like, really? Me? Thank you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I know there's something to this. And I've got friends of mine telling me, Rex, you got to release an album. You've got to put this stuff out there. So I am going to release an album later this year. It's coming. I've got music that's coming, my own music. In addition to my band, in addition to another project I have called The Uninhabited, which I write and produce all the music for that project. Now, my first band, we write the music together. Now, I don't write the music for that. But I literally walked into that one, literally as a DJ, just dropping samples over their music. And that's all I was doing at first. And that went from that in 2014 to this in 2021. Totally did not.
You're going to have to let us know.
Katie, my lead singer of Quantum Being, said to me, I think it was last year, she's like, wow, Rex, the universe really wants you to be an artist.
So you're going to have to let us know when that's all ready and when that's out there. But the statement you just said, the universe wants you to be an artist. Do you think that we all have something in there? Something a little creative, or some kind of gifting or calling, or something where we can give back to the world?
That's one of the reasons I like to share this, because yes, I absolutely do. And it makes me just wonder, because of this, how many people out there are, grinding away at jobs they might be making a good living. And I get it, you got to take care of your family. You want to send your kids to college. I get it. You got to take care. You got to be responsible and do what's best for your life. But I do, and I know, and I see this more and more with people, because think about it like this: how many people do you know in your life, Kirsty, that you're like, wow, my friend so and so can really sing. Wow, my friend so and so can really play that guitar. Wow. Do you know any people like that?
Yeah, I do.
Well, what do you think might have happened if that person didn't get? I don't want to speak to their experience, but maybe the logic of, I need to do this, be the responsible. If I'm going to make money, this is the safer path. Because if I take this path, it's too risky, and you know what I mean. Who's to say if they'd followed that? And for anybody else that maybe like me, perhaps I'm thinking, I don't know how I covered this stuff up. I wonder if it's been inside of me all these years, and how did it not come out before the NDE? So yes, I want to encourage people to think outside the box. Go, I don't care. I'm 54 years old. Go out there and explore. If you got breath in your body, you know, I mean, and you're in a place in your life, no matter how old you are, how young you are, and you're not feeling like you're fulfilled, and you're not thinking that this is the direction, you're not excited about it, you're not getting up every day and looking forward to what you're doing, then I think I got a lot to think about, and maybe some decisions to make about what you really want to do with your life, or the rest of your life, as it were.
Totally. And I think we have this little call on our conscience. We have something going on when there's something we need to do, and we kind of know about it, and we can push it down and secure it so that it's not actually speaking to us all the time.
Yes.
But I think we know when we're doing that. I want to go to some questions.
Sure.
So yes, thank you. Welcome everybody. Matthew says we're all God's children with a smiley face. Love that. Paul has just joined us now. Paul has a fabulous Facebook group called Project Consciousness, and
I've heard of it.
It is amazing. There's a lot of this conversation that goes on in there. So just want to say hi back to you, Paul.
I'm actually beyond it.
I think
I might be. I mean, I know I've seen it, so I might actually be on it. I have to double check.
I think you are. I just wanted to give a little shout out because there's some fabulous information that goes in there, and Paul, you do a great job with that group. Okay, coming to Mark's question. He says, could you please ask, did he feel any of the energy of any of his loved ones that might have passed? I understand that we are all one energy. We are all connected. And then he says, thank you. And he loves listening, to take care. So did you, in your NDE, did you experience any connection with past loved ones? How are we all related and connected?
The answer is yes, but not in the context that you hear other NDEers describe it. In my experiences, I'm kind of doing it maybe a little bit backwards in the way other NDEers have done it, because when I was in that moment, I mean, everything was there. So yes, my loved ones, the angels, the devils, everything was there. Everything and everybody, if you will. And it was all connected in one and infused. And the foundation of it all was this love that permeates through everything. Shoot, what was the other part of the question? I had something. I do this sometimes. What was the other part of the question?
That's all right. I do exactly the same thing. Did you feel the energy from loved ones that might have passed?
Yes,
I understand we are all one energy and we are connected.
So thank you. So the second part of that is now in my experience, that has become a regular part of my life. I literally feel like I have relationships with all kinds of beings, including my loved ones. Everything from ancestors to stars that have passed to beings that, you know, maybe we haven't even begun to explore or think about here on Earth yet, to you know, what we might call our guides, all of that. And the thing is, what I've learned let me try. It just reminds me of a story, but what I've learned is we're all beings on a path. We're all having a soul journey. We may have different perspectives of things, and some of these beings may have some, from our perspective, some incredible, insights and ideas and just the ways of seeing things that we can't see because of the type of existence they have. But understand, they too are on their journey. They're finding their way home too. No matter how advanced, how multidimensional, ninth, fifth dimension, you hear about all these things, and I'm all about it. Yes, but make no mistake, they too are on a journey. They too seek out relationships. Now, we think in terms of, oftentimes many people think in terms of, well, that's my guide, my angel. I don't like the my part, first of all. That's sort of a form of possession. Nobody's my anything. I can maybe have my boyfriend, my wife, my girlfriend, whatever type of thing. I get that part. But my thing is this. We're friends. Have a mutual relationship. This might sound crazy because we feel like we're these piddly, tiny little humans, and we're dealing with beings that are almost, seemingly godlike to us. But yet they need our friendship and our love every bit as much as we need the love of our kitty cat that we have at home that we snuggle up to when we're having a really bad day. Now, and that's not an insult, mind you, because as far as I'm concerned, that animal, that cat, even in that form, is perhaps vibrationally, divinely resonant in that form. Oh, it's just like that. Now, that's another thing too. This isn't about pure intelligence that brings us home. Yes, one of the ways home is through an ever-growing form of experience, consciousness, and dimensionality. And what a beautiful, incredible form of experience to go home. But the same that beautiful kitty cat that's at home, that's cuddling you and being there for you every time you're upset, or just to love you when you're having a great day, or just happy to see you when you come home. That's a soul that might already be completely vibrationally, divinely resonant. And it is really that simple, because that love is so unconditional. It is so pure, so real. And that's really, again, on the one hand, it is that simple, the journey home. Now, sometimes getting us into that vibrationally resonant place, considering the kind of world we live in as human beings, can be very difficult. And that's where the challenge and the complexities come in. But the thing is, even something like a being as simple, you think, it is not about an intelligence. This really is a vibrational reality. You know, when something that, you know, Tesla, a scientist, said, and I'm sure most of us have heard this quote, which I'm probably going to paraphrase now, is, if you really want to understand the universe, think in terms of vibration, frequency, and energy. And then that's what I'm referring to. And it is, it's all vibrational frequency reality. But understand, as we're talking about vibration and frequency, this is not a cold and lifeless, just, you know, thing of numbers and statistics. This is frequencies, you know, vibrations that involve thought vibration. Your intentions have vibration. Your love has vibration. Your words you speak have vibration, not just through the sound waves that come out of your mouth, but through the vibration of your energy, your attention, your electromagnetic fields that we call our auras. All of that coming together.
I want to expand on Mark's question. Mark, that's a really great question. Thank you for asking that. So I don't even know how to describe my question. The energy, do you think it changes from the life that we're in right now, this actual physical world that we're in, compared to the energy from maybe our past loved ones, like Mark's talking about? If there is reincarnation involved and then they potentially go and get reborn, does that energy linger? Does that energy go with them? I don't even know how to put this into actual words. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Am I making any sense?
I think, well, the thing is, I don't think there's this is one of those questions. There's no one single cookie cutter answer for that question, because you're dealing in the realm of just such possibilities. You know, and you know, when you're talking about love, I mean, you're not talking about something that's relegated to space time as we are in our human form. And let me just kind of get a little sciencey for a second here. You know, we talk about what's called the unified field in science. I also refer to this in spirituality as the Akashic field. Now this field is a field that's past, present, and future. Okay, everything is inherent in this field already. There's nothing that exists, not even your most secretive, deepest of thoughts can exist if it isn't part of the field already, because the field is already infused in and around us as we are infused within the field. So it's kind of like, if you can look at it like that, in terms of just everything sitting in a place of potential, and movement being movement at the speed of thought, speed of intention. In this capacity, if you're looking at this, you're not, you know, again, you see the arrow of time, but with that thought, especially if you're motivated by love, a connection, that special divine love, be it a soulmate, twin flame, or soul, any kind of that deeper soul deep connection, literally just through thought, you can just be there. It can be with you. You can create reality right off of that. And it's not an extension of this reality. It literally is, because we see it as such because it seems so new to us, but it's really a very, very natural part of our being, because this is part of the I am we were talking about earlier. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. As soon as you said the Akashic, then I sort of got it. It doesn't matter what form people or beings are in, because it's all existing at all times.
And you can access it anytime you want.
And it might change. The physical form might change, or the body might change. Yeah, but it is actually still all
and nothing's
constant.
set in stone. Even the past, everything's malleable and flexible and can shift.
Yeah, don't you love that?
I do. First law of thermodynamics. Energy is always changing states.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, on to another question. This one's from Lorianne. Is your life easier to live now that you've had this experience, or is it more challenging in a different way? Are you living on book royalties? I guess that might also be asking like your physical health now as well, how are you going now, but how has your life changed? Is it easier to live now?
In many ways, it's more challenging than ever now. If I may be, because I mean, of course, I'm always very real and understand this, and this is just the sensitivities, and a lot of it has to do with just because I see what really is now, and in ways like I never have before. You know, there's a part of me that really would have been okay to have died on the path that day, and I'm sorry if it sounds kind of morbid or something. I'm sorry for that, but there really is. As I look at the things now and what I've learned and the state of the world and everything, There's a part of it that's like, I don't have, especially now, enough of like an attachment to the physical things like I used to for that to be my sole motivation to be here now. I'm here to experience love, to give, receive, to learn, to grow in a love capacity. And because we're in a world where so much anger and so much volatility, it's proven to be very challenging. Even in some of my personal relationships, I found sometimes just trying to find even a positive ways through. Not to say they're always like bad necessarily, but it's like, just with a couple of minor shifts, something that could be a bad thing all of a sudden could just be a really magical and beautiful thing. And I'm not, I mean, into terms of any kind of a relationship in your life, be it with your parent, a sibling, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, your best friend, and so I sometimes struggle with what I said earlier. Oftentimes people just are so attached to these negative patterns, and I know it's because they're hurt, because of because of their own damages, and I understand why it happens. Again, nothing's ever arbitrary, which is why I have compassion for all of it. But at the same time, being at the receiving end of some of those decisions where you're looking at it going, wow, this really could have turned out so cool, but it has to turn out like this. It just gets hard, and seeing it just happen over and over again, it just wears on a person. And something that happened since my NDE is I've always been a sensitive person. I've always been fairly empathic. And now it's ridiculously off the scale. So I'm feeling this stuff on such a level. And because I see possibilities in such an acute level, it makes it really, really challenging to just realize how things could be versus how things are. Again, not just in my own personal life, but even when I look at the world, there are just so many ways through things that people could just do individually, collectively, even leaders of nations, which is the smallest of gestures could just have the biggest of outcomes. This is a great example of the butterfly effect. Seriously, the smallest of gestures, you just don't always know sometimes, can just have the greatest of ripple effects in the most amazing ways. And people just miss that over and over again, and then make the excuse, well, it's just how it's supposed to be. This is exactly how it is, or it's exactly how we're supposed to be. And I'm like, okay, you're right, you're fine, but what is that saying 5,000 years into human civilization, that while technology has grown, and so many things about our lives have grown, that we still, as a people, still keep running these same patterns of destruction, conquest, materialism. I mean, it just going to the Persians, to the Romans, any number of cultures, all the way up to even American culture, which I think I can fall a little bit into that sort of materialistic, which is part of the problem. What's going on here is there's a side that really is all about just the money part and profit and driven, and there's another part of it that's trying to be maybe not as much about that, but perhaps maybe offer more to the environment and to humanity and things like that. And I don't want to dive into politics here, but again, it's just gets into, as somebody who's so sensitive and somebody who's becomes such a visionary of things, of pathways and possibilities, to just over and over see just people make those same darn decisions and just go, I don't know. It's almost like watching a game and your favorite team's like right there on the verge of winning the game, and in that last moment, whatever. We'll just say, I don't know. I know American football fairly well, so I know you've of course, we'll take say rugby as an equivalent. So you've got the guy who drops back to make the pass, and next thing you know, he just flips out of bounds. Like, wait, what'd you do that for? Why your guy was wide open. You would have won it right there. Why did you throw it away? And it seems like that happens so much. It kills me. It does. It just breaks my heart. Even when it's somebody I watch stuff on TV. I'm not even involved, and I'm looking at this going, oh, this is painful to watch. Oh,
Yeah, and we all see people who do this, don't we? We see patterns, and they can't see it, but you can see it, and it's hard to deal with. So taking it back to a more physical place, if somebody is seeing the pattern, or they are hanging on to hurt or emotion, or they're in a place where they're not feeling like they're growing, you're just saying that you can see people do hang on to that, they're stuck in this place. How do we break out of that? What's the first steps? Any ideas?
Recognizing it. Most people have no idea. I found, because I have had conversations with people, and I'm telling you, you really feel like you're speaking in a different language to somebody who's just really not ready to hear that. And so the first step, there's nothing anyone can do until they're ready to recognize that. They have to acknowledge it to themselves. It's kind of like an alcoholic or a drug addict realizing they have a problem. I'm not saying this has to be considered like a problem per se, but that's the first step towards healing, is recognizing, okay, there's an issue here and I need to deal with this. So if a person isn't ready to recognize that, then that tired old cliche of you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink tends to apply.
Definitely, definitely. And that's where we can start to look at things on a soul level and understand what's really going on there.
Yes,
Why
the understanding can go a long way because
Yeah.
you don't know. Because one thing I've learned about life, as in with my martial arts, we talk about this in the martial arts, at least my martial art all the time, is that timing is everything. Maybe in one particular moment, that's not the time to try to reach out and get through to that person, but maybe in another moment, maybe they've been through something, they're in a space where they're ready to receive that information, and you go, oh, boom, I think right now we can make that connection. So now we're going to have that conversation and see what happens.
Yep, definitely. Okay, moving on to our questions. Where are we at? Are you able to find calm and serenity, or has your experience given you so many possibilities that it's hard to experience calm and serenity now? Man, I so relate to that question.
Well, the thing is, I actually, in my core, and for the first time in my life, I can truly say I'm at total peace and calm and serenity at my core. Where I have any struggles is just is working and traversing through the physical world. I'm sorry, what was that question again? Sorry, I did my brain injury thing.
Are you able to find calm and serenity, or has your experience given you so many possibilities that it's hard to be calm and serene?
Okay. Yeah, the second part of that is this. The thing is, I actually have a really clear vision of me, the person I want to be, that I am evolving and becoming, and I have a very clear vision of my path. The only thing I'm not sure about yet is how to get maybe from this particular spot to some of the places I want to get to. And I think once we get a little bit further past this coronavirus stuff, it'll probably help kind of facilitate things in what I do, the music business and releasing music and releasing books and doing presentations. So hopefully those opportunities start to open up a little bit. So I have to say, for the first time in my whole life, even going back to the NDE, I mean, it wasn't as clear then as it is now, but even at that moment, I knew just to surrender, give in, let this whole thing go, and see where it takes me. Because anything else I've done, first of all, I don't really like where I thought I tried taking myself. I just find everything's just a big grind and a fight, and so I've just let this be, and I just kind of jump in there and act and react when I need to. But at the same time, don't lose sight of my goals, my visions, the intentions, the dreams here. What I also feel like is what would be for me a destiny. And to me, what destiny simply is fulfilling that which would be one's own, say, highest path, whatever that means to you, that which is your best life. That to me is what it means to fulfill a destiny.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's really cool. Okay, I hope that answered that question. As a genealogist, I realize small parts of all of our ancestors physically. I think that we're connected physically. Do you believe that the same theory carries into our vibrational properties as well, or is that unique to us as individuals? So I think he's looking through generations, trying to understand, do we carry over things through generations? Correct me if I'm wrong, Alan. You're very welcome to put in another comment about that.
I think that, I mean, again, everything is infused and connected. So genetically, that's no different. Scientifically, it's already, there's already research and studies going on about the genetic connection to the quantum realms, that there's a direct connection to these genes, to the quanta. So I don't want to dive too much into that right now, but yes, all of these things, this is when we talk about synchronicities, not just synchronicities in life, but synchronicities on a soul journey as well. I think that that's where we start to see all the different pieces start to come together that bring us into a place where we are in our current life, current experience, even in this current moment in time. And what was the other? Can you repeat the question one more time? There was something else I wanted to say to that, please.
Okay. Which one? As a genealogist, I realize small parts of our ancestors are connected physically. Do you believe that the theory carries into our vibrational properties?
Okay, yes. The other part I wanted to say about that was in Native American philosophy, sweat lodge. I don't want to try to say the term because I'm going to mispronounce it probably. I think it's Patakiasin, which means all my relations. When you do sweat lodge here in America, the Native American sweat lodge, it's you're basically reaching out to your ancestors. The guidance from the spirits of your ancestors, those who've come before you, not just say your grandparents or great grandparents, but even those ancestors that were perhaps from, in my case, a lot of my background is Germanic. So my ancestors from, the old world in Germany. or the part of my ancestry that might be in the, the United Kingdom area. So, and of course, for Native Americans, a lot of the ancestry would be, going back to the Americas, potentially been thousands of years since potentially they were the first peoples here. So, spiritually speaking, yes, obviously science talks about that. Even as we change spiritually, we are changing genetically as well. Genetics don't change without our spiritually changing, because just take this into consideration. Science also tells us your genetic code does not remain static throughout your life. It changes. I mean, your codes can do one thing. I mean, I don't want to get into the whole C, T, G, A, whatever, the 4-letter thing, but any one of those can change, almost like the way an atomic energy can change. An atom can literally change from an oxygen to a hydrogen. An electron can literally just shift from an electron to, say, a quark. Literally, those shifts do happen on those levels, and genetically it works like that too. So as we evolve spiritually, so too will we evolve genetically. And with that, certainly the energy of our ancestors, not just genetically, but also spiritually, in terms of the memory and the energy and the akasha. Again, think about it as all being one and the same, working together. And yes, so hope that answers it.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Even if it hasn't quite answered, it's given me a whole lot of food for thought. My mind is
yeah, I go off a lot of
wow, I
different
want to talk about
sometimes.
that, because you hear so often about things. My brain is just off form. Things going between lives. So you're carrying things over from lifetime to lifetime, whether that's patterns or it's something keeps happening, and you hear about residue from previous lives.
Well, think about
So
it.
that's got to come through. That's got to be not hereditary, but spiritually hereditary.
It is, but I think it comes to her in a physical way as well. Again, the quote, a wicked statement, as above, so below. Again, it all works together. It's kind of like the brain. Is brain produced in the consciousness? No, but the brain is a transceiver of that conscious experience. So it's that same similar kind of a context. I'm sorry. What was the last part you said again? Forgive me. I go off in too many different directions.
Okay.
And I'm just
you
trying
fell
to
9 meters out of a tree. You were totally okay.
Yeah, seriously, you have no idea how scattered I can be. One of the reasons I love music, one of the reasons I love to have my writing and things that I do, because it brings me here in the moment. And if you don't already know, I'm also a fire performer. I do fire eating, fire transfers, and I do a lot of different fire tricks, and I make a point to work with the fire. I don't perform. I kind of retired from the performing course with COVID. There's no performing anyway. But it's one of those things. The reason I still do it is because it brings me right here into the moment. And if I had the fire and the torches while we were talking, I wouldn't be forgetting what I'm saying so much, because I'd be right here. It's a funny thing that's happened. And what's really crazy is that I'm not spacing out like there's nothing going on. In fact, it's the opposite. Too much is going on, which is why I keep going out there, especially when we're conversing about stuff like this, because I have so much I want to say to everything that you're bringing up.
I know, and that's me with questions. My mind just fires off, and I find it hard to just bring it back. And I'm aware people listening maybe don't get the smoothest ride, but that's okay. So Alan said
I
that
just hope there's food for thought in there somewhere. That's all.
Exactly, it's somewhere in there. Alan says thank you. He agrees, and so that's really useful. What do you mean? What do you mean the past is mutable? We must have said that at some point.
Well,
past
that's another very, very long conversation, but one example of that is shifting memories. As I've mentioned, I have a bit of a violent past. I've done a lot of fighting, and there's also time in my early life, well before the NDE, I was crack and meth addicted. I was a bit of a speed freak, as they say on the streets. And I did, a lot of stuff happened during those years. And one of the things leading up to the NDE was living with some of the memories of that time in my life. One of the things that held me back was those memories, because some of that stuff's really hard to live with. And for the longest time, I just thought of myself as being just this horrible person, almost like, okay, I don't deserve redemption. I don't deserve a love in my life. I don't deserve, because I did this stuff. I hurt people. I mean, yes, I've been hurt. I'm not saying people were all like innocents. It wasn't like that at all. Everybody chose to be in those situations just like I did. However, I didn't need to play the role that I played. Now, I carried that guilt for years and years. And with the NDE, one of the things that helped me do was find forgiveness in that. Now, let me get to the experiential part of this. What really helped affirm this shift. I had an experience and this is only a couple of years after the NDE, and I'm still pretty skinny. I'm 6'4" and weigh about like 170 pounds. I'm a skinny dude. And, I used to weigh about 200, but I actually at that point was down close to 150. I lost a ton of weight through this whole thing. I was still really skinny and underweight, probably like 160. And I just, was trying to get back in shape and all of that stuff. Anyway, I'm sitting in a bookstore, one of my favorite little tea shops, the best chai tea on the planet there. And having a conversation, like kind of a group conversation with a number of my friends, and we're talking about NDE stuff and consciousness and, shifting the world and love. And there's a couple of guys at the table next to us that I meet because I'm into tattoo culture, and some of the places I've been in the past, I recognized they had prison tattoos on them. And the one dude looks at me and he says, "Man, you soft." He just starts ripping into me. I can't believe you saying that. You're too old for this stuff, man. And he just like laid into me. I can't believe you go out in the streets. You go see what I see, man. They'll just chew you up and spit you out. You saw. He just went off on. He was like mad at me for saying that stuff. And understand, of course. I didn't probably look too threatening at the time, and I wasn't trying to. I'm an old warrior. Somebody jumps in my face like that. In the old days, that would have probably morphed into a fight. However, obviously, multiple reasons I didn't want that to be a fight, not the least of which, in my post-NDE life, I wasn't wanting to go there anymore. One of my goals was to do everything different. I didn't want that anymore. So instead of going down that old road, I turned my chair. I have glasses usually. I took my glasses off, and I just sat there. I looked the guy right in the eye. I said, "Man, I got news for you." And I went through and I told him a little bit about my past. I'm from Detroit. Detroit's a big city with a lot of stuff. Told him about a little time that I spent on the streets with my addictions. And I also told him about my NDE falling, almost 26 feet, all the stuff I went through. And I looked him right in the eye. I said, "Man, how strong are you really? You think you could do that? You strong enough, man? How strong are you really?" And I didn't know what was going to happen right there. I was kind of mad, but at the same time, I was still trying to find a way through this. But I knew I couldn't just like, "Oh, no, you can't do that with somebody like this." Yeah. And I didn't want to be disrespectful, but you still have to come off strong. So I'm like, but at the same time, I didn't know what was going to happen. So he looks at me, he takes a second. The whole room is quiet now. The entire cafe is now quiet because they're hearing this going on with us. And even the owners are just kind of standing back like, whoa, I'm friends with the owners. They know me pretty well. I've known them for years. And all of a sudden he looks at me, he kind of gets a smile on his face. He goes, "Do you mind if I get in on this discussion? I'd like to join the conversation." And his buddy's like, "Yeah, can I do that too? Can I join you guys?" And they both joined our conversation. We sat there for like 2 more hours. And the dude that I was about ready to get into it with, that guy had so much to say. I'm telling you, he had prison tats. He looked hard. You look at his eyes. He looks mean. He looks like a dude right off the streets. You see these guys in the movies, like, you don't want to mess with this dude. But I'm telling you, this guy would be right here in the middle of this conversation and have a lot to contribute. And he would never, nobody would look at him on the surface and have any idea this was inside his mind. So in that moment, that shifted my past. All of a sudden, my past that I hated so much, that I was so ashamed of, believe me, I'm still not crazy about it. But all of a sudden, it meant something now. Now it had light on it, if that makes sense. Okay, that's just one example.
Yeah, that makes sense. So. Wow, that is awesome. And I see quite often, I've heard so many stories, I've seen things in my own life where similar things, if it just a little bit of heart and a little bit of love can break down that front, and so much can come through these conversations. So much can change.
Yes. You just
through
never know. And sometimes you take a chance like that. In fact, it reminds me of another story. Again, I spent a lot of years in nightclubs, and I still like to DJ. I mean, of course, before the coronavirus stuff, but I mean, I still like to do. That's one of the things in my old life that I still love. DJing and music is still a big part. Obviously, the biggest part of my life. Anyway, I was in a club, the Denver club, just a couple years after the NDE, and it was the end of the night. The bouncers are saying, "Everybody got to go home. Everybody's got to leave. Finish up your drinks, pay off your tabs, and everybody go home." And there was this one guy. He was a big, huge, built-up guy, really angry, walking up and shoving people, yelling and screaming at people. And everybody, of course, he was kind of a big guy, so I could understand nobody was trying to mess with him. And there was no bouncers around at the moment to try to, hey, get this guy out of here. So he walks up to me, starts yelling at me, and he shoves me. And of course, the warrior in me, my first instinct was, oh, and immediately like, nope, we're not doing this. So I did. I kind of just took a breath right in that moment. It's like, man, I'll tell you what. I know you're having a rough night, and I know whatever's got you so pissed off, it's got nothing to do with me. Tell you what, I know these bartenders, not that he needed another drink at that moment, but I thought, hey, I could probably get us one more. Why don't I just sit down? We can just talk about it for a secsecond. And if nothing else, brother, I got a hug for you. I got a hug for you right now. And it's just the funniest thing. And he looks at me. You just know that was the very last thing on earth he was expecting to come out of my mouth. And he didn't actually say anything. He just kind of looked at me a little bit strange, but he walked out of the door after that. He didn't shove anybody else. It diffused the situation, and he just walked out. I hope he got home safe because he was pretty lit. But I mean, he didn't mess with anybody after that. Whatever our exchange did, it was enough to diffuse whatever was going on in his head. Maybe he caught himself, because who's to say? He's probably not a bad guy. You catch him the next day, he probably like, oh, I feel so bad for acting like that. I was such a jerk last night. I'm sorry. Because a lot of times, guys that act that way, or women too, but I mean, anyone can act that way when they're drunk, but usually they feel bad about it. So he may have been a good dude that just was having a bad night. So I'm just really glad that it didn't have to amount to anything. In fact, just that he just, instead of, anything happening, he just walked out. That's a lot better than the alternative. So many of the alternatives,
Yeah, totally. And that brings it full circle in my head. If you have any questions, you're listening, you want to ask a question, we've just got a couple more minutes where you can put those in there. But it brings us full circle, in my opinion, Rex, where you talked earlier on in our call about people who do not such great stuff in life, and they live their life like that. I can't even give you the exact words, but you're talking about how some people are they live really bad lives.
Right.
Bad as in, harmful, not pleasing to other people.
And harmful to themselves usually too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the part of it usually is that there's a detriment to themselves, even when it looks like they're trying to, be selfish or something. It's usually something that's ultimately self-defeating or self-destructive to it.
Yep. Exactly. Do you think, though, that there's the potential that actually that is their purpose, that is their path in life, and that we all play different roles, and that they are there to create harm, to create havoc, to hurt themselves, hurt people? Or do you think nobody has a harder or a negative purpose within their life?
Well, I listen. I can't, say obviously the way anybody else would interpret the experience. I feel like a lot of what you're talking about, these roles and rationalizing it out that way, these are so many parts of the experience that, again, I talked earlier about, the choices in those proverbial forks in the road and taking those, the direction that can help versus the direction that's the same old. And it just gets back to that again. It's like, it's not necessary. All this stuff, we create this stuff. We create these dramas, this whole reality, this manifestation. We make this. I mean, and it's fine. It is what it is in terms of how we want to traverse it and process through it. So because sometimes, come on, I mean, we've all been at our wits' end, and maybe we've even had suicidal thoughts at times, and because it's been that bad. But no, it doesn't have to be like this. Simply put, it just doesn't have to be like this at all. And no, we don't need that. I think after thousands of years of this, no, when do we just go, okay, enough, I'm tired of this. Let's move on to the next. And most of us, that's what's so frustrating, is so many people are really there. And yet, unfortunately, and again, you look at 2020 and you can just see just how many people still really just aren't. And I don't have an answer to how to get through to those people in this here and now, at least not right now. I don't know how to get through that. And that's probably the biggest challenge about being here on Earth. And that's one of my biggest concerns is, again, I know the potential for humanity. I see it. I mean, I know that there's really no limit to what, even on a little human form, what's possible for every single individual. I mean, we are a veritable universe unto ourselves. I mean, this concept, like I was saying earlier, being created in the image of God, Goddess. I mean, we are the universe, the multiverse within ourselves. Think of all the worlds that have risen and fallen in the confines of your own imagination. Think about all the things that have happened in your own thoughts. I mean, in addition to all the physiological processes taking place, I mean, we really are, as I've heard said before, we are God. We are, I don't want to say God's plural, but we are God. We are Goddess. We are that source, experiencing. So in terms of the experience, that's on us. If we want to say we need bad people to somehow make us better, okay, that's your choice. I don't need that. Certainly not at this point in my life. I don't think most of us really needs that. I think most people are in a place, you just show that love, give them opportunities to do what they love and let them have their dreams come true. And I'll tell you right now, you'll see the best in that person come right out. That's what I'm looking for. And you see the best in this whole world come out, all that other stuff goes away. We don't need it. I'm serious. There's so many ways to be inspired and motivated to grow and evolve that don't involve tragedy. It doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah, that's true. We often wait till the last moment and tragedy has to kick in because we've waited so long. Time. Tragedy is the wake-up call. We say something has to be different.
Right.
And then it happens. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I have so enjoyed our conversation, Rex.
Oh, thank you.
If you look over everything you've learned, everything that you've studied, you've looked into a lot of different topics, and I know we could talk for hours and hours and hours. I mean, the last hour has just gone like that.
It has. I can't believe it's already. Yeah, it has flown right by.
1 hour and 11 minutes. I know. Look at that. What is the one big thing for you? Whether that's a one topic that's really impressed on you, really grabs your heart, whether it's one key theme or a key message, or what's the big thing, the overarching thing for you personally that you'd love to embrace or love to talk about, or
just lifting up the world. You know, something I say often in my presentations, and I say it in my book, the more of us living the life of our dreams, the closer we come to living in the world of our dreams. And that's all I want. I'm here for love. I'm not here. I'll embrace all the experiences and all the things like crazy. And I'll immerse myself in the experience as much as anybody can. But I want to do it with love. I'm not interested in this stuff anymore. I want to bring it together and lift us up, and let's do this together and create something more along the lines of what we're all dreaming about, so we can all live the lives that we dream and enjoy and can share and grow. And you know, the thing is, when you live life like that and you're thriving like that, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it with the intention and hope that you can lift other people up and bring them along with you, not separate them and put them down so you can be powerful. Let's all lift up and thrive and be powerful together, because we can. I mean, even with the way the world is right now, even with the huge population and all the shortages and things that are going on, we can get it together real fast and put ourselves in a situation where every man, woman, and child on this planet has everything they need to thrive in this life. I mean, there's a lot to that. And again, it's another big, long conversation, and I have a lot of ideas about how that can happen. But again, it gets back to what we're talking about already. You know, things don't have to be like they are. And this world that we're talking about, and I think many of us imagine, it can happen. There is no limit to the possibilities for the human race, except the limits we put on ourselves.
Yeah. Boy, do we put a lot on them too.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, so interesting. Thank you. You got a question here from Mark. Sorry, a comment here from Mark saying, "Amazing interview. Love your passion." Thank you very much.
And lots of love to you.
If you've loved this, just pop it on in. Jerry Moe, saw you come in there. Hello to you. That's okay. You can catch the rerun for this. This will be up on the Facebook page and the YouTube channel. If you've really enjoyed this, or if you want to do a little shout out to Rex, just pop in a little comment saying thank you, give him a thumbs up, a like, a love heart, whatever it is that makes you feel like you've given back to Rex. That would be wonderful. And yeah, Rex, we just want to say thank you. I so appreciate you coming back. I love doing these follow-up calls where in the interviews we hear more about the experience itself, and that's where I can ask some questions and we delve into that. But I'm always really curious, what happens after the experiences? How does it change people? Like, we talk about that, but when we get outside of the actual experience, we learn about people's lives and what they believe and what they've studied and all these different juicy topics. I find so much value, and I know that our listeners find so much value in that. So we appreciate you. We want to say thank you. There are some beautiful comments in there if you want to go back and read them. And if you've tuned in, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for your input.
If I may, my website is gravity.life, just gravity.life.
Gravity.life.
It's available on Amazon.
I believe
that's one of them. That's since coronavirus has hit. That's my primary, way of living right now. So that would be appreciated, and I hope you would enjoy the book. If you enjoyed this conversation, I think you might enjoy the book.
Definitely. Sorry, that was gravity.life.
Gravity.life. Just www.gravity.life.
I've never done this before, but I believe I can comment into my own comment feed. There we go. Look at that. So that is there. Go and check that out. Yeah, that, like we say, this is Rex's primary form of income right now, is selling his book. COVID's a really interesting time. So
It
if you
is.
want to support him, go and do that. Thank you so much, Rex, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Hey, wish
and
you all
just
the
wanna
best and
say
lots of
thank
love to you and everything you're going through. I know we're all having a hard time. Lots of love to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.